In the TV series Knight of the Seven Kingdoms and in the Hedge Knight novels, Ser Duncan the Tall claims that his former master, Ser Arlan of Pennytree, knighted him before dying on the road to Ashford in 209 AC. But did this event actually ever occur? And was Ser Duncan truly ever knighted? Or is this just an elaborate lie that he has conjured out of thin air? Well, in this video we will answer all these questions and more by considering the textual evidence available to us across all three Dunk and Egg novellas and what George R.R. Martin himself has said about Ser Duncan in interviews and blogs. But before we begin, if you love learning about lore from A Song of Ice and Fire and other fantasy worlds, then be sure to subscribe to my channel, Fantasy Spark. Around the year 209 AC, Dunk arrived at Ashford Castle as a 16-year-old orphan from Flea Bottom, desperate to enter the tournament and earn his living as a Hedge Knight. But when challenged by Plumber, Lord Ashford's steward, about his knighthood, Dunk claimed that Arlan touched me once on my right shoulder and once on my left and said some words, and when I got up he said I was a knight. But as both the Dunk and Egg novellas and the Wiki of Ice and Fire directly state, several of his thoughts and actions as well as other facts suggest that his tale is not completely true. And the evidence supporting Dunk's deception is overwhelming. When asked who witnessed the ceremony, Dunk could only offer the absurd answer, only a robin up in a thorn tree. No septon, no anointing with oils, no human witnesses or anything credible whatsoever. Just a bird that the HBO adaptation hilariously reveals was watching Dunk relieve himself, not watching him being knighted. Formal knighthood ceremonies in Westeros require solemn witnesses and proper ritual, and a robin in a thorn tree satisfies none of these requirements. Simply put, Dunk was working with a fabricated story that had no legitimate foundation, and this lie would eventually go to haunt him for decades to come. The most clear evidence that Dunk was never knighted can perhaps be found in his own contemplations immediately following Ser Arlan's death. Rather than celebrating his newfound knighthood, Dunk's internal thoughts reveal uncertainty about his entire future. He considered joining the Lannisport City Watch, finding another knight to squire for, and potentially selling Thunder, Arlan's warhorse. These are not the musings of a freshly knighted man who just achieved his lifelong dream, but more obviously the desperate calculations of an unemployed squire facing an uncertain future. Why would a legitimate knight contemplate abandoning knighthood entirely to join a city watch? The timeline proves catastrophic for Duncan's claim. Arlan died of a chill before reaching Ashford, and Dunk immediately faced existential questions rather than knightly obligations. With his primary path now uncertain, Dunk fabricated the knighting story as a plan B, as this was his only viable option to be able to enter tournaments, seek service with lords, and escape the poverty of Flea Bottom. I do believe it is crucial to highlight that Dunk lied about being a knight not out of malice but out of desperation and necessity, as after Arlan's death, Dunk was just a teenage orphan with 3 horses, some equipment, and very little prospects. To participate in tournaments was realistically his only option to gain steady income and social advancement. He needed to be a knight and therefore he became one, but without ever officially being knighted. So there we have it. Dunk was never formally knighted by Ser Arlan of Pennytree because Arlan died before the ceremony could take place. This would mean that Dunk would sustain and use the false pretenses of being a knight to eventually become one of the greatest knights in Westeros history and a respected member of the Kingsguard. So I hope you found this glimpse into answering whether or not Dunk was really a knight interesting. And remember, if you love learning about lore from A Song of Ice and Fire and other fantasy worlds, then be sure to subscribe to my channel, Fantasy Spark.